seated.
As we begin this service, a reminder that those who might have cell phones or pagers, if you please put those in the off or vibrate mode so as not to disturb the sanctity of this occasion. Begin the service with a reading from the book of Psalms. Tefillah Moshe Yish Elohim Adonai Ma'on Hatayita Lanu B'dor V'dor B'terem Harim Yiladu V'tolel Eretz B'tavel Me'olam Adolam Ata El. O Lord, you have been our refuge from generation to generation, before the mountains were born, before the earth was fashioned, from eternity to eternity. You are everlastingly God. 1,000 years are in your sight as a passing day, an hour of night. 70 our years may number, 80 years if granted the vigor. Laden with trouble and travail, life quickly passes and flies away. Grant us of your love in the morning, that we may joyously sing all our days. Match days of sorrow with days of joy. Then your servants will see your power. Then your children will know your glory. The favor of the Lord our God be upon us. The Lord will establish the work of our hands. The work of our hands God will surely establish. And now from the writings of Ben Sira, from the wisdom literature. Fear not death, we are destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived, with all who ever will be. Bewail the dead, hide not your grief. Do not restrain your mourning. But remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory rest, and be consoled when the soul departs. Death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest than constant sickness. Seek not to understand what is too difficult for you. Search not for what is hidden from you. Be not overoccupied with what is beyond you, for you have been shown more than you can understand. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, are our few days in eternity. The good things in life last for limited days, but a good name endures forever. O God, our heavenly parent, you redeem our souls from the grave. You are the rock of our salvation. Forsake us not in time of trouble, in days of distress and desolation. Help us to endure, O Lord, for we have placed our hope in you. We'll join together now in the 23rd Psalm. If you are familiar with the words, please join with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This morning we have a number of family members and friends of Michael's who have thoughts that they are going to share with us this morning. First, we're going to call up Ron Joseph, who will be followed by Joe Gellis.
Good morning. I'm Ron Joseph. I'm one of the Worcester boys that many of you may have heard Michael talk about. The Worcester boys are 7 of us who all born in 1950 and grew up together in Worcester, Massachusetts. Unfortunately, I'm the only other Worcester boy that could make it here today for a variety of reasons. So I'm speaking for myself and for the other Worcester boys. I can't really remember when I didn't know Michael. I think we probably met around fourth grade because we went to different elementary schools. And we met first, I'm sure, at Temple Emmanuel because in fourth grade we began going to Hebrew school Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So I'm sure it was there we first became in contact. But from seventh grade at Chandler Junior High School till the end of high school at Doherty High School, Mike and I were in the same class probably 98% of the time. So we did everything together. Sorry. I was there with Michael as he developed his strong views about racial justice and equality and imperialism and capitalism. I was there. Some of you may have read in the article from the Zinn Education Project about his being in the class taught by Abby Hoffman. Slightly inaccurate. He wasn't the teacher of the class. He was a substitute. But I was there. And Abby talked about his experiences in Freedom Summer in Mississippi. And I know that those sessions we had with him had a great impact on both Michael and me and other friends of ours. And it was also there with Michael and I at Classical High when we were sophomores. We decided to join the debate club together, and our first assignment was a debate about the Vietnam War. And we debated two seniors. We were sophomores, and this is 1965. And we, of course, were arguing for immediate withdrawal. I think we won the debate, but I don't know. And then I was also with Michael many times over the next few years as he began to cause what John Lewis so eloquently called good trouble. Low, small scale, but in high school, it began with, this might have been Michael's first organizing experience. After a senior class election that was really administered unfairly, we collected signatures on a petition to have the election nullified. And we were successful. The new election had the exact same results, but it was a good lesson in organizing. We also heard about the school administration searching lockers for marijuana. So we got a bunch of people together and we published an underground newspaper. And even though we distributed off school grounds, they were all confiscated by the school. But another organizing experience. But by then we had a reputation. So when during our senior year, an English teacher thought it would be a good idea to start a literary magazine. So Mike and I went to the first meeting, and we were elected co-editors. And the principal said, no, not happening. And, we continued to do things together even through college. We were arrested together in Hiroshima Day in 1970 at Hampton Field with about 350 other people blocking a roadway. We went to demonstrations together in Washington, including the counter inauguration in 1972. So I could tell lots more stories about Michael, but you get the idea. He was one of a kind. A friend and a force for good in the world. So all I can say is, Michael, we're going to miss you so much, and we're going to try to carry on to fulfill all the visions you had.
see the welcome t-shirt. I'm going to try to tell you a few fun facts about Michael, some of which are revealing and some of which are just amazing. First, for me, Michael is probably the biggest reason I'm in Cleveland. In 1973, he persuaded a group of Oberlin grads to move to Cleveland to make the revolution. I wasn't an Oberlin student. I was a full 3 years older than them, which is a generation in college student years. But I joined them. Needless to say, we lost. But I stayed. Now, fun fact number one, you already heard. Michael had Abby Hoffman as a Sunday school teacher, early 60s in Worcester, Massachusetts. A substitute Sunday school teacher. But Abby challenged these young people, mostly from garden variety Jewish liberal families, to think seriously about the contradictions of the world they lived in and what to do about it. Fun fact number two, Michael was for many years a serious jock. He played in several basketball leagues. The other team would size him up, say, oh, short, chubby, no problem. Guard the tall guys. Michael would have 10 points on the board before they figured out that he was the threat. Michael was also a serious tennis player and coached at least 2 schools. Fun fact number 3, and this gets more important. Michael's lesson plans were brilliant. They were designed to illustrate the world in ways that I have never heard matched. In one lesson, he would bake cookies, one for each class member. So 25 kids in the class, he'd bake 25 cookies. But they would not be given out equally, one to each student. Instead, the kids would draw lots for their ranks in the class system. One lucky student got to be Mark Zuckerberg, or whoever was the Mark Zuckerberg of 1970s, and get half the cookies. A few others would get 2 or 3 cookies, 1 cookie, half a cookie. Half the class got crumbs. Say what you want about American students, but they do have a deep sense of fairness, and that was what Michael was addressing. Michael's lesson was always that things do not have to be the way they are. Another lesson plan was about slavery. The class reenacted Middle Passage, laying on the floor, roped together. One day, Michael's department chair walked in on that class. It did not end well. Michael also refused to accept the South High School custom of paddling students as punishment. Every class had a paddle, and a student who misbehaved was called up, bent over, got whacked on the butt. He wouldn't do that. People were amazed that he wouldn't do that, but he wouldn't. It also didn't sit well with the administration. Last fun fact, and I hope I don't have this one wrong. I got a little confirmation just this morning. Michael, okay, first, welcome. You all know what welcome was? Late 1970s, the big political controversy in Cleveland was desegregation, or as its opponents called it, forced busing. Michael, coming from Massachusetts, knew what kind of hell could break loose there and did not want that to be in Cleveland. He wanted desegregation to be a positive thing. So he organized what became 2 bridge walks. West Siders and East Siders, let's come together. So a group of people came from the west side, another group from the east side, and they met at the top of the Detroit Superior Bridge. That year, Michael met CJ on an elevator. They chatted about her work, and by the end of that ride, Michael knew he had found the perfect person to lead the east side of the first bridge walk. Took a little while, but he also realized he'd found his life's mate. In not much over a year now, we have lost both of them. The world is far less for their loss, but it was infinitely richer that we had them both for almost a half a century.
Next, we'll call up Albert McIntosh, Zach Schiller, and LaTanya Jackson.
So I met Michael as I think it's 16 or 17-year-old high school kid. My mom, I didn't know his relationship with my mom at the time. I just know that my mom was really interested in doing a lot of community organization and politics, and Michael would be hanging around. And it was actually okay because, one of the things I shared at my mom's passing is, my father left my brother and I when we were small children. And so my mom, then she got remarried, and that didn't last too long. And then she had another bad relationship. And so at this point, as a teenager with, a single parent of two teenage boys, we're kind of like, Mom, you may want to chill for a little bit with the dating scene, because it was really driving us a little crazy. But we were typical teenage boys, and Michael would hang around, and it was an odd relationship for obvious reasons, right? First of all, my mom was about 8 years older than Michael. Obviously, a racial difference, and that didn't really bother us too much. But then, but the politics was kind of weird. We just didn't understand it at the time, even though Mom was in it. And it's basically Michael was a hippie. Okay, that's just call it for what it is. So we're two African American teenage boys looking at this hippie hanging out with Mom. What's that about? When I was 18 years old, as a college freshman, Mike and Mom, my mom, C.G. Prentice, they get married. And I have what I feel real strong about is, what I really admire about Michael is he gave my mom something she never had in her previous relationships, and that was a lifelong love. Someone who would love her unconditionally, didn't ever try to control her, just simply loved her. And Michael, my mom so appreciated that, and they had such a tremendous union, and they were such a tremendous force, and it was a really great example of a husband's love for his wife. Married 43 years, of all the relationships that didn't make it, the married to the hippie was the one that did. And the other thing that I admire about Mike is after my mom's passing, and I was always in the scene. I think we had a mutual respect. I respected his intensity, his focus around social justice issues, and he was committed. I mean, if you knew that he was there was a cause. He was not a fly-by-night, I'm just going to write a check type activist. No, he was all in, from lifestyle to just giving everything he had. He just was totally committed to this. So him and my mom really made a real strong connection in that regard. So we really had a strong mutual respect, because I think he saw that in me in a different way. I'm a social worker. And so my activism is more on a micro level, individually with families and children and things of that nature, not so much on a larger scale. But I think we both are very passionate about what we did, and we just had this mutual respect. We really had to work together after my mom's passing. The day my mom passed, Mike came. I was there when Mike came to the hospital. I actually found out my mom had passed, and then Mike was on his way back to Ashtabula, and the hospital told him, no, turn around, come back. And so he comes in, of course he's devastated, and he said, Albert, you take care of everything. He just couldn't handle it. I said, I got you, Mike. And so I had to work with him really intimately around the arrangements related to my mom's passing, and also the celebration of life. And interesting enough, that activity of working together on that project, he saw a side of me, I think after 40 some odd years, he had not really seen, and we hadn't worked in that way. And what it did is it allowed a foundation of a tremendous amount of mutual love and connection over the past year and a half. I was sharing with some family members after Thanksgiving. Michael, the snow, it was a big snowstorm on Thanksgiving, as you guys remember. And so he was invited, couldn't make it, was going to try, but he said, no, Mike, stay in Ashtabula and stay safe. So he came a week later. We warmed up the turkey and all the other food. And Michael, if you know Michael, when he has to make a declaration or a statement, he'll kind of like say, I have something to say, or I just want to make like a proclamation. And I said, okay, Mike, what do you got to say? He said, I just want you to know, Donna, I really love you. Albert, I really love you. I really love you guys. And I just like, wow. People say that all the time. I love you, what have. But he felt the need to make a declaration of that. And not that he needed, we knew that, but that's who Michael was. We had a wonderful time. My mother was inducted to the Ohio Civil Rights Hall of Fame in October, and Michael was accepting the award on her behalf and gave a wonderful speech. And it's hard to think that those times that we had, those moments that we had, and just thinking about how things have transferred over his life, just amazing. So I just wanted to share that. And one more thing, let me share this. Michael had talked about having a spiritual awakening towards the end of his life, and really reconnecting with his faith of his Hebrew faith, And it was so amazing how that was happening. It was the result of him connecting with, and this happened to my mom too. They connected with a very small, and ladies, I hope I'm not getting it wrong, but I'm calling a very small African-American Pentecostal church in Ashtabula called Hiawatha Church of God in Christ. And these folks just loved my parents. They loved them. By the way, I call Michael my stepfather. It took me years to be able to say that title. I say it with pride now. He was my stepdad. And that's significant. And he began, from that relationship of love, he began to say, there's a spiritual awakening happening in me. And I know he started getting involved in a Talmud study. I thought that was so cool. And just really a transformation we all began to see in his life, and this expression of love towards the last year. He was always that way, but he was just like becoming free in that space in a way that I had not seen. And I just wanted to share that. I love my stepdad, and I'm going to miss him very much. But as someone said, his legacy, his work will continue. What CJ and Michael believed in, that will continue. That will continue to live on, and we're going to make sure that happens. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Zach Schiller, and I've been a friend of Michael since the late 70s, and in fact, got to know him through Welcome, which is also where I met my wife. So I can't credit Michael directly with that, but I think indirectly anyway. I just want to mention a few qualities that stand out to me about Michael. First off, though, I think, us and all we do great things about people. And I'm not going to talk about all of Michael's demerits. But let's face it, he was a slob. And so, we need to be honest about folks. And that was sort of endearing in a way, that there would be stuff on his shirt. But anyway, Michael was a perennial optimist. And the last time that we saw him in a kind of regular way, we went to a crab dinner out in Ashtabula just 2 weeks ago yesterday. And I was going on about how Mom Donnie wasn't going to be able to get anything done and whatever. He said, oh, no, he's going to get 50,000 people up to Albany. And, yeah, he won't get everything he wants, but he's going to get them to raise taxes so he can get some of what he is trying to get. And it was just one example of thousands of Michael's optimism when others might not be. He was also creative. Joe stole my line about the cookies in the class, which I thought was about the best example. But he was just very creative and always coming up with something new. He was a radical. I don't even remember all the events. I think others here probably do, but I remember the students at South High and him organizing them, resulting in his being, I think, forced out, in effect, to another position. Michael also focused all the time, or so heavily, on young people. And not just as a teacher, obviously, but also in always trying to organize and show young people, work with them. And I know Daniel Ortiz is here in the audience. One example of that was his Youth Voices project, which organized high schoolers and others from around the state. And he went to all kinds of, I remember he was driving to Van Wert and down into southeastern Ohio and all over the place with young people, as well as, of course, here in Cleveland, to organize in favor of the minimum wage proposal. And so we have an $11 minimum wage in Ohio, which isn't nearly high enough, but it's because of Michael and CJ, who played a key role in it as well. But an example of that was the whole Youth Voices project of getting young people involved, some of whom are still involved because of that involvement. He's also, of course, just very generous, whether it's the Thaddeus Stevens statue, the Prentice Charney Fellows, or just in everyday life with people. But I think the thing that stands out as much to me as anything about Michael is that he always had a strategy. Sometimes you might think of it as a scheme, but always a strategy. And this wasn't just in political matters. He had a strategy about where to go to dinner, as my wife reminded me. So anyway, that kind of wraps it up, but I do think we have a huge gap because no one will replace all of these qualities. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is LaTanya Jackson, and I became a friend of Michael from his wife, Mother CJ. We called her at the church, at the Hiawatha Church of God in Christ. And today it is an honor to talk about my friend Michael Charney. In this short time, Michael has made a huge impact on my life, and he became a part of our family, our church family, my Jackson family, and Michael was always there. 4th of July, he would come, birthdays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Michael was there. Michael was a great supporter. He would ask, LaTanya, where are you speaking? I'd tell him, and he would show up. LaTanya, where are you teaching Sunday school? And he would show up. He would encourage me, but also challenge me to do better. He would tell me where he felt like I was a little hamstrung on a subject and would make suggestions of, you can do this a little bit better. And as we know, Michael was an educator. Michael wasn't just an ordinary educator. Michael was a strategist. He was a mastermind. He could and often would tell me of the history of everything. He could calculate percentages faster than a bolt of lightning. He could recall dates and facts about presidents and political parties and governments and languages and world events and especially civil rights movements. He could do that more accurately and efficiently than anyone else. Michael especially believed in and wanted equality and solidarity for everyone. There are so many memories that I have with him that I cannot tell it all today. But I never remember one time that we were together that I didn't learn something from him. Michael Charney and I had a special relationship. I had never been in a relationship like this before with anyone else. Michael affectionately called it our gastronomic relationship. Michael would call or text me and say, hey, you want to go out to eat tonight? And as you can tell by my size, I would say, yeah, sure. Michael would take me to some of the finest restaurants from Erie, Pennsylvania to Cleveland, Ohio. I would always pray over the food until one day Michael said, can I pray? From then on, Michael prayed at every dinner. Our last dinner was out at my favorite place called Berkowitz-Kumin-Bookatz for Joni's birthday party. And Michael prayed over the food. And he prayed a special prayer of blessings for each one of us that was at the table, one by one, name by name. Out of all the times that we went out, I never got the impression that Michael was so enamored with the food, but making others happy made Michael smile. Even though Michael loved doing great big things for people, he was always deeply moved by small gestures. A coaster from Africa, a t-shirt or a trinket from Ecuador, or just watching the sunset over beautiful Lake Erie. That would bring Michael so much joy and even sometimes tears to his eyes. One last thing, and I'm through. A few months ago, on one of our dinner outings, Michael asked me if I would speak at his funeral. And of course, I tried to shrug it off, and I shouted out like I always did, "Long live Michael Charney!" And with tears in his eyes, he repeated, "Yeah, right. Long live Michael Charney." You see, this is how I would often end our phone conversations and our texts. So today marks the end of our gastronomic relationship, but it also is the birth of a legacy of a great man. Long live the memory of Michael Charney.
And lastly, we'll call up Barry, Golden, and Jesse.
That's a tough act to follow over there. Hi, everyone. My name is Barry. I am Uncle Michael's niece and Jill's daughter. And it is so sad but beautiful to be here today with all of you. It's just such a good vibe, as the kids would say. And it's just wonderful to hear all of these stories about Michael and all of the people he's influenced and the way he's going to continue to influence Cleveland and all of those he's touched. So thank you for being here. Let me just pull up my document. I think as I was reflecting on what I wanted to speak about today, I think two things have just been so clear with him. And the first is just how he has lived so deeply into his values in a way that I don't know that I've ever known someone so well who has been so singularly focused in everything he does in a way that is just, dancing to the beat of his own drum, being a slob, and that's okay, and being so clearly driven by these issues that drive him to almost not be able to not act. It's like he couldn't not do something. And then the second, and relatedly, is just his support for CJ. I think that was just something, especially growing up, to see that type of relationship is so unique. And the fact that he was able to just really, take a back seat and support her in everything that she did and really show up for her and be fully aligned with their values was just something that was, to think about it is just, it's so unique. It's like very, very rare to see. And just hearing everyone speak today is like, it just reinforces all of that, tells me new things that I didn't know before. I can't even read what I wrote.
I think, one of the recent memories I have is of when he spoke at CJ's funeral. And, he just came alive and he spoke for so long with so much energy, had so many stories, and really just, showed up for her in a way that he just did for, their whole relationship. And I just, it's just so wonderful to see him like hanging out on the couch watching basketball and then just coming alive talking about someone. Just the juxtaposition was really cool. I think that, the other piece that is really inspiring is just how many people he has been able to impact, and really, in this supportive way. So like even the stories that have been told today about the way he taught and, the initiatives he drove forward and the people whose lives he truly changed the course of because of his passion and his investment in, the issues and the people in them is just so inspiring. And so I'm just, it's just going, thinking about like how would Michael influence people? How would Michael strategize and scheme and help inspire people to, do the right thing, especially in this moment now, is just something that I will definitely take with me. So thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jesse Charney Golden, and Michael's my uncle. Growing up, I would see Michael maybe 3 times a year, and most notably Thanksgiving, right? We were his Boston family, and he would get in the car, joke that he would take one right onto 95, and then drive 10, 11 hours. Who knows what would happen in those 10, 11 hours, but take another right off of 95, show up at my parents' place, and we would just have these wonderful Thanksgiving weeks. Every Friday night, we would go to the Celtics game and sit in the nosebleeds and just have a great time year after year. But I didn't really know much about him and CJ's life out here and what they really stood for. My first introduction to that was going to his retirement party in Ashtabula, and that was the first time. What a wonderful event! Just seeing the life they had out here, and hearing from some of his students that he inspired, and just kind of starting to understand what they really stood for. And so as I got older and showed interest in history, we would have these great conversations, and he would always educate me on the things I wouldn't learn in school, the history events that I should know about. And then the annual recounting of the Welcome Project event, and once again him coming alive to recount this story that happened 30, 40 years ago, and just of course him meeting CJ and meeting his wife that he was so devoted to. But then the event itself is just such an embodiment of everything he and they stood for, and he would just tell it in admiration. Michael was woke before woke was a thing, right? Years before. And I just can't help but think of this Obama quote, which total paraphrase here, but just if you steer the ship 1 degree in the right direction, 10 years down the line, you're 10 degrees in a much better place. And I really, that just really comes to mind with Michael and CJ's mentality. Just really having this long-term view, just pushing against ways in the right direction, double downing on their moral compass, and just really, looking at the future for a better place. So 2020, I decided to quit my job and be a potter, and Michael on brand wants to fight for the little guy, the underdog, and commissions me to make these mugs for a lot of people in this room. So, we're talking about it, and he says, again on brand, this history, can you put the year stamp on there? And, hindsight, do people really want to remember that year every day when they're drinking their coffee? Maybe not, I don't know. But then he sends me a list of 100 names. And, we mostly know Michael from, he's on the couch watching the game at Thanksgiving. I'm thinking he's not this social guy. I don't have 100 people that I know, really. And so halfway through the project, he sends me another list of 80 more names. And it's just, it just shows of the community that he and CJ built, and what drove that, their moral compass, their values, and which would radiate out, and people would follow and come consistently for that. So that was just an incredible awakening for me, and kind of a learning of Michael and CJ's life. And then, I reinvested that money and signed a lease and helped me kind of start my business, which I just look back at that as just such a thankful thing that he did for me. And so I just, I miss this loving energy. He wouldn't really express his love to me, but I knew he really had it, and I didn't express my love enough to him, but he knew I had it, and so I just am gonna miss him, and I love him. So yeah, thank you.
We read in the book of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for planting and a time for reaping, a time for keeping and a time for discarding, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for embracing and a time for refraining, a time for slaying and a time for healing, a time for laughing and a time for weeping, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. According to Jewish tradition, these words were written by King Solomon, considered to be one of the wisest men of our tradition. As he reached old age, he came to understand that everything has a time and a purpose, even though we may not always perceive it. There is never a good time to lose a dear family member and friend like Michael Charney, a man who spent his life fighting for equality and justice, struggling to make this world a better place for all humanity. So this is a time of crying and mourning. As I thought about my brief remarks this morning, I thought to myself that it can't be mere coincidence that Michael passed away the day before people in synagogues around the world read Parshat Vayechi, the part of the lectionary cycle, the Torah portion, which is at the very end of the book of Genesis. The text describes Jacob's final words, his ethical will, as it were, to his offspring before passing away. And this really struck me, Latanya, your words about how at that dinner he went and gave a blessing to every single person, just as our forefather Jacob did. By the end of the Torah portion, Jacob's favorite son, Joseph, has also passed away. And their deaths mark the end of an era. The Torah is no longer dealing with an extended family. The focus shifts to a nation, the Israelite nation. And as we move into the book of Exodus this coming Saturday, this coming Shabbat, it is a time for reflection and transition. This sacred moment, as we bid a final farewell to Michael Charney, we recognize, as described by Ecclesiastes, that this is a time for mourning. But it is also a time to ponder the role that Michael had in our lives and the lives of those around him, both near and far. And really, the people who spoke this morning did such a wonderful, wonderful job of doing that. I won't attempt to try to top it, but we know that there were so many things in which Michael was involved. His passion for racial equality, empowering marginalized communities, working for the rights of laborers, for better conditions, for higher wages, his commitment to education, for teaching about Reconstruction, for teaching in a way that people could understand and be inspired to work and move forward. In more recent times, the work that he was doing in Ashtabula, helping to get students from Ashtabula out of Ashtabula to see more of the world. And of course, his commitment to social justice, which is something that is near and dear to me and so many of us in this room. Michael was a man of action. He was determined in his convictions. He was compassionate. And he had a kindness and sweetness about him as well. He was respected by his family, friends, colleagues, and fellow activists for his impact on the community and those around him. In Judaism, we believe that the soul is eternal. Our bodies are but vessels that hold our souls. They are placed within us when we are born, and they return to God when we die. Even so, there is a part of each of us that will live on in this world even when we are gone. How does that work? How does that happen? The sages taught that when we, the survivors, emulate the positive deeds of others, in particular the deeds that Michael performed in his lifetime, we help to keep his soul alive. Through his actions and his love, he shared a part of himself with us that is now a part of who we are. We must nurture that spark by continuing to bring honor to his name through our deeds. In doing so, we help to ensure that his soul will be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. There is indeed a time for everything. At this time of sadness and transition, we thank God for bringing Michael into our lives, and we look to a future where his physical presence is no longer felt, but where his spiritual mark will impact us for years to come. Tehei nishmato tzrura b'tzrura chayim, may his soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. And we say, Amen. On behalf of everyone in the community and family and friends who are gathered here, we extend our deepest condolences to Jill and Mark, to Jesse, to Barry, to Albert and Donna, and to all those who were touched by this remarkable man. This service will conclude in just a few moments after the recitation of the El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer. From there, we'll proceed in procession to Lakeview Cemetery for interment. After the interment at Lakeview, everyone who is here is invited to a Shiva of sorts at the home of Joe and Mia Buchwald-Gellis at 188 South Compton. That's just off of Taylor Road. Did I only do 1-8, 2 8s? 1888 South Compton. Everyone is welcome there from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And in particular, those who have thoughts or memories that they'd like to share that we're unable to do so because we only have so much time at this service this morning, are invited to share their thoughts or memories. We'll conclude our service here at the funeral home with the recitation of the El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer. We'll ask all those who are able to please rise. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, Bemalot Kedoshim Oteorim, Kezarakia Mazirim, Et Nishmat Michael Charney Shalach Le'olamo, Began Eden Tehei Menuchato, Ana Bal HaRachamim, Hasti reu b'seter kenafecha le'olamim. Utzror b'tzor ha'chaim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato. V'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo. V'nomar, Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of Michael Charney, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. The Lord is his portion. May he rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen.